Welcome to CMO Huddles Studio, the live streaming show dedicated to inspiring B2B awesomeness. I'm your host, Drew Neiser, live from my home studio in New York City. And today we're tackling a leadership shift every modern CMO needs to understand. For years, we've been celebrating the hero leader, the smartest person in the room, the one with all the answers. But in a world of AI, hybrid teams, and constant change, that model feels like it's breaking down. Today's most effective leaders aren't necessarily heroes. They're system designers. Instead of trying to outthink everybody, they build operating systems that help teams think better together. They create clear workflows, strong feedback loops, and environments where learning happens every day without everything running through them. So in this conversation, we're going to explore how to move from chief problem solver to chief system builder, how to design marketing teams that learn faster than the competition, and how this shift makes you more scalable and more valuable as a leader. So you know that if too much depends on you, if your calendar is packed with decisions only you can make, this conversation is for you. With that, let's bring on Dan Lowden, CMO of Blackbird.AI, and a returning guest who has previously appeared on the show to discuss many topics, including analyst relations, growing high-performing teams, and cybersecurity. Hello, Dan. How are you, and where are you this fine day?
Hey, Drew. Good to see you again. Good to be on the show, and I am in New York City as well. I'm in our office and near Bloomingdale's, so it's a good day to be in the city.
It is indeed. We had a little rain, but it's all good now. All right, so let's talk about how you build operating systems, if you will, that stay agile. And this sort of, it's almost a cliche to call it a fast-moving, tech-driven environment, but that's what you're in. So talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, for us, I have three quick examples that I can share that we've turned into systems that have made us incredibly productive. Yes, we're leveraging AI in every way we can through the workflow, but I'll give you three quick examples. One is around content. We have what we call a Raven narrative intelligence team that publishes all these reports with primary research around how we protect customers from what we call narrative attacks. So they go into deep detail. It's incredible work. And then they pass that to us, and then we anonymize that as a marketing team so we can then publish that as a blog or as a report. And it's become this process where the analysts are very excited to participate. They want to be heard. And the process and the system that we created makes it super easy for them to publish without doing any extra work. We do take on the work and summarize things and polish it and put it out there. And from that, we've put out about 150 pieces of content over the past 12 months because we're leveraging all the reports they're already creating. So that system's worked really well across multiple departments, and it's been very successful with us. Another thing, we've been doing lightning strike announcements where there are important things that we want to put out and tell about the company or the industry. So the World Economic Forum risk report just came out, or a big Gartner report came out that said Blackbird's the company to beat in disinformation narrative intelligence. We have 10 lightning strike events happening, and we're repeating the process every time of what needs to be created and the workflow and how it's published and when it's published. So everybody participates, everybody gets behind it, and these are really important events for the company. And then finally, like I mentioned, Gartner's publishing a lot of reports on our topics that we cover. So we're leveraging their quotes and their quote systems over and over again and incorporating it in all of our content because it's really valuable what they're saying. So we're leveraging it across the marketing team, but incorporating other departments in it as well.
So a lot of these systems relates to content, and obviously that my guess is that content is a huge part of your whole marketing program.
100%, right? We're a new category, so we have to educate the market. So content. And it can't be slop. It can't be boring, data sheets with marketing language. To be perfectly honest, it has to be hard-hitting findings, reports, use cases, customer stories, attacks on geopolitics, or we summarize, unfortunately, there are digital attacks on executives that turn physical. So we're able to protect the customers that we serve. So we leverage a lot of this content, but we anonymize it in a way that it's easily shareable and understandable, but without putting any risk, to the people we serve.
Got it. And so when we go back to you as a leader, obviously you can't review all this content. So talk a little bit about the way you make sure that your team knows there's standards to be met, what is good, what isn't, would Dan approve this or not? And, as a leader, setting the tone and the system, right, for this. I mean, I get all the content and that it sounds amazing. It feels like there's some leadership parts of this involved. I just want to make sure we uncover.
So 100%, like guidelines are critically important. We have to give direction so that, say, like an analyst doesn't mention something that they shouldn't mention, or one of the content people on my team make sure something is anonymized in a way that, again, protects the customers that we serve. Or, hey, this is a topic that we don't want to delve into. Disinformation is a hot topic across the world. We just announced a big partnership with NATO, right? They're involved in disinformation attacks by Russia, China, North Korea all the time, and there's a lot of sensitive material. So we have to set up these guidelines so that my team feels empowered to be able to publish these things. And yes, I do have to be involved in the reviews pretty much towards the end of this, but it's written in a way where there's not much that I have to really look out for.
Yeah, and given the fact that you mentioned earlier, 150 pieces of content, you couldn't possibly read all those.
No way.
No way. And so the guidelines have to be very clear. The standards have to be very clear. And I seem to recall that you have one of your first hire was a very senior ex-journalist, right?
Yeah, CBS News reporter. So that was my first hire. And that's why this is so important, right? Our target market, we work with chief information securities, chief risk officers, chief communication officers. And it has to be compelling content that's valuable to them, to educate them, to help them do their jobs better. So this has to be really, really good content. It can't just be AI generated and put out there. It needs to be personal, human, and really provide value to the people we're engaging with.
Do you have a Dan GPT that your team can use and say, what would Dan say?
The answer is yes to all the above in so many ways. We're using so many different tools to help us get a head start on things, because that's kind of how we're looking at thousands of data points in a narrative attack. We're using AI to help us say, here are the most important ones or the prioritized ones. And our customers are using that too. And that way we can make sure what we're publishing is going to have the best impact when we share it, right? But we're an AI company, so everything that we do is AI based, whether it's images or video or content, text that we create. And we're pretty productive with that. My goal is to have our company look like $1 billion company, but our marketing team is 5 people.
I love it. Well, it's funny. I'm just thinking about this. So we do have a Drew GPT, which I use quite a bit, which helps with my writing and challenging my thinking and so forth. But I don't have a Drew GPT that someone could go on our team and say, what would Drew say? And at some point in time, I think a lot of us fear that if we do that, then we really don't need to work anymore.
Yeah, I think we have to be human. We have to sound human. It has to be us, has to be our voice, and that's important.
Yeah, I love it. Well, from a man who had a company named Human, I get it. All right, with that, let's bring on Katrina Klier, who is the CMO of eSource and an industry expert who's graced our stage before to discuss many topics, including fractional CMOing, content strategy, and the CMO's path to the boardroom. Hello, Katrina. Wonderful to see you again.
Thanks, Drew. Thanks for having me. I'm on the road today, so in between places, but really happy to be here and join
So,
you.
may I ask what country you're in?
I am going back and forth between the U.S. and Europe for a variety of things. So
I see. Okay, so
on
fine.
the road.
You are an international woman of mystery. We'll just leave it at that. So let's talk about AI. It's changing roles and workflows, and I'm wondering. So for eSource, how are you thinking about your team systems? So the learning is compounding, and I feel like that's a really important place to start, because it can be that every challenge looks new, and it's like, no, we solved that over here before. So talk a little bit about the systems and the way you're thinking about them, particularly for learning.
Yeah, I think it's we're all kind of figuring this out as we go, right? And I think one thing that's helped me with eSource and then in other places as well, though, is to really kind of think of your team as really having more three categories of resources now. I mean, we used to think of tech and then our people. Now you have the tech that you have your people, which might be employees, agencies, vendors, the whole lot. And then you have AI related things, whether those are agents or tools or that kind of stuff, which kind of span a little bit of tech, but span a little bit of what people used to do as well. So thinking about it in three categories, I think is helpful so that you don't accidentally either think of AI in particular as being only a tech thing or only something that takes human tasks off the plate of your team. It can do a variety of both. So that's one. The second one I would say is, kind of really shop at home first. So when you work with your team and stuff and designing more of a system, you probably got a lot of stuff that could make your lives easier today. Maybe you just haven't used all the features in, like your CRM as an example, your email automation or other tools. There's a lot of AI enabled features. You just need to pilot it, plug in the right data sources and give it a go kind of thing. So you can experiment and bring in that learning element, both for people to learn about AI and systems thinking, as well as the system you create, like learning as it goes and getting better, without necessarily having to go drop a massive amount of your marketing budget to do so. So I would say those are two main things. And then it's really, and this sounds like such a nuance, but it kind of isn't when you get into it, really architecting an operating system for your team. So how the work flows, what you do, what you don't do, how the system evaluates itself, the system being, again, that combination of those three buckets of resources, and improves over time. And it's a different mindset, right? Because I think many of us, got promoted to being a CMO because you could solve problems, you could harness opportunities, you were the turnaround CMO, or you were the whatever acquisition CMO, or those were the things that you were known for. And those specific things propelled your career. But those things now can change in terms of how you do them so rapidly that I think the differentiator today is really more how well you design systems that can hold up beyond the one thing or the group of things that you need to do today. And it sounds like a nuance, but I think it's just a whole new way of thinking about it. And I think AI is that differentiator for CMOs going forward. Are you a
Let me stop you there,
CMO or a system one?
Well, and I think that's the point of the show, and we'll be, this was Chris's idea for a show. We'll be talking to Chris in a second, but I do think that we're really talking about, right? It's well framed. You were really good at this. You were help a company get from 35 to 100 million. You had a playbook that did that, and you'd hire a certain number of people on your team and so forth. And now it feels like there could be a shift where you are designing this system, if you will, that helps you and your team in a way that you probably never could have done it before. So I'm curious with you, you mentioned, I think everybody understands people, yes, you still want really good people. I think we're looking at people maybe differently, right? We might be saying, hey, they need to be techs, not necessarily tech savvy, they need to be tech aware and tech curious, right? Or I should better say AI curious, AI first. Then tech as in, MarTech and so forth, all of that's up for grabs now. So now we got to look at where, I guess one thing that you could help me understand is you talked about agents. I'm just curious where you're seeing those on the org chart right now.
Yeah, and so in fairness, we're still working this out at Source specifically, but in general, like the thinking is more, think about what people really need to do. Like, what do humans really need to do? And those tend to be things like framing the problem, defining the parameters for success, creative direction is a big one there, relationship building, criteria and frameworks you're going to use to make trade-offs, because we all know marketing is all about trade-offs. Brand stewardship's a big one, that your humans need to be out in front of your people, as well as ethics. And ethics in particular with how we work with AI, because that includes a lot of data related things, privacy things, and a whole bunch of stuff there. So I think it's important to really think about what do humans really specifically need to do. And that's going to vary by company, quite honestly, what you would put in that bucket or not. Processes and things, I think, become more modular, so you can do shorter cycles. I think a lot of us got really good at iterative improvement on things, and so that kind of lends itself into more experimentation with things to see how far you get. And then the agents and the AI tools kind of fit in between things, right? So if you identify a lot of tasks, as an example, that are highly repeatable, really repetitive, like you've got the data you need to do them, you kind of roughly know the volume of them you need to do, you know what needs to happen on the other side of it, that's kind of perfect for an AI agent, right? And you can go put them in there, with the caveat that, like, building an AI agent is a bit like hiring a new person in your team. You hire someone and they have all the capabilities to do the job. That's why you hired them. You built the AI agent with all the capabilities to do the job because you built it that way. It doesn't mean the first thing that this AI agent, just like your employee, does is going to be like the best thing since sliced bread or the best thing ever. Those agents need feedback. They need feedback in terms of tuning, tweaking, adjusting different things, feeding it different data, feeding it better reference models and examples for things, just kind of like you would a human when you hired them. You sit down and like, this could be better. That's not quite right. Do this, more of this, less of that. And I think in setting up agents, that's a piece that a lot of people miss. They just think, well, it's AI, so the first time it does something, it's going to be like, awe-inspiring. And that's rarely the case. It's like hiring a new person.
I love it.
You have to coach it along to be better. So we've been looking at places where we can do exactly that. Like, what do the humans really need to do? Where can we rinse and repeat some things with some agents or AI-enabled tools? Like, again, a lot of this is built into stuff you probably already have. So can you turn that on and use it? And then I think it's less about, what so many of us have done in the past, which is build a manual process and then automate it, right? If you start there, I think you miss what AI can do for you. So you need to use AI to help you figure out how to use AI, right? Plus your people and input from that standpoint.
Perfect. And we're going to come back to that. We'll come back to that. I want to give Chris, who's been waiting patiently, I want to bring him on, and then we'll come back to the getting the AI to work right. So let's put Chris, welcome. Chris is the VP of Marketing at ADP, who has previously joined us to shed light on the intricacies of product launches and leading through transformation. Chris, welcome back.
Thank you. Happy to be back.
And how are you and where are you?
I am good. I'm in my basement today in Mamaroneck, New York. Nothing too fancy. Last week I would have been in Prague, which was way cooler. And,
much cooler.
What an awesome city, just for the audience, but amazing city, worth a visit.
Well, I mentioned earlier that you had this concept for this show and some very specific things in mind. And I know Dan and Katrina attacked it one way, but where would this was your idea for a show. Where do you see approaching leadership as a system designer instead of a hero?
I appreciate the question. I think the biggest thing is that the job of a leader isn't to win the game. It's to design the machine that wins consistently. I think that is kind of where we are today. So, and Drew, I think you actually mentioned this before. I think I heard it from you directly, but I love this. And I think about it like every week, not to, kind of blow up your head too much. But if the internet democratized access to information, which is a statement, generative AI promises to democratize expertise. And what does that mean? Right? Like that, in theory, really changes what leadership needs to be. So I believe personally that the future, the leader of the future is not the deepest specialist in the room. It's a generalist who can do two things extremely well. So the first one is learning new domains and challenges very quickly and very effectively, obviously AI assisted. And number two, age old, does not change, still relevant, building high performing teams, right people in the right roles doing the right thing. So as I look at my organization, I try to think about it as more of an engineer overseeing the system. My job is not to execute marketing programs and events, of course it is, but it's really to build and refine a repeatable operating model that improves over time. So if hero leadership creates dependence on kind of approvals and things of that nature, I think system leadership creates progress.
System leadership. All right. So what's so interesting, I always talked about the roles of any leader as three things. One, build the team. Two, set the vision. Three, allocate resources. But
Right.
It's really set the vision, build the team, allocate resources. And what I love about your framing is learning new domains becomes a really interesting, in some ways that's sort of part of setting the vision, but that's a lot of stress right now. And I think a lot of CMOs are freaking out about, because there's an infinite amount of domains to learn right now.
Yeah.
Like, have you spent any time on OpenClaw? I haven't gotten there yet, but everybody's talking about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious, as you think about your personal journey to learn new domains as part of it, because look, we could talk about building high performance teams all day long, and I think we should, but it's this learning new domains that I think is the one that might give some CMOs pause.
I think it's a great question. And I think it's just an understanding of the world we're living in now. But I also think it's always been kind of the case outside of companies that are, very much kind of top to bottom, consistent, repeatable. Here's what we do. If you are in an organization or a market where you're pivoting and you have to change, I think a good leader would always have to kind of deal with that. And a good example I can give from my experience in terms of just like, how do you apply this concept is, and I know in a previous podcast, I mentioned our kind of account-based marketing approach and how we've implemented that, but just this kind of agile ABM machine, if you would. Not a one-time launch, years in the making, testing, learning, refining, iterating, what have you. And instead of treating them as more of like a waterfall kind of start and end date type of campaign, more of an evergreen model with cross-functional pods, with sales, product marketing, content and creative from my team, sales enablement, experts and demos, other relevant SMEs, et cetera. And what we've done in terms of like really systematizing this is creating a clear operating rhythm. So we have not 2-week sprints, but 3-week sprints. Not that it matters, it just kind of works for us. But 3-week sprints, we actually have a dedicated Scrum Master that leads these sprints. We have 3 stand-up meetings a week. We have a monthly performance review with sales leadership, and we have quarterly recalibration sessions, if you would, just to kind of understand what's working, what's not, how do we iterate and improve. And obviously AI, as we've kind of mentioned, like, increasingly, plays a role on the team, more so over time with asset creation, personalization, automating workflows, what have you. And just as we look at this system, at least in terms of my world, like, how do we determine if this system is healthy? So we measure 3 discrete things. The first one is the obvious, most straightforward business outcomes. If we're doing a program, a campaign, our close rates improving, is sales cycle length reducing, is pipeline velocity increasing? That's the obvious one. The second one is like the execution discipline. So we actually, in our team, we use Jira Cloud. So we're actually looking at like a traditional kind of, think of it as a sprint team in the product development world. But like, what are our tasks? How are they being completed? Are we seeing any problems? Is it being completed based upon expectations? So like business outcomes, execution discipline, and the third one, which I think is as important as any, is like team health, like in terms of engagement. So we actually have engagement tools that we use at ADP to measure the members of the team that are part of these kind of sprint teams. And we've seen increasingly, like over time, but like regardless, like no question, increased level of engagement and commitment for members of this team versus just kind of the status quo. So over time, like all of our kind of business outcome, ratios and metrics, as I mentioned, have improved. But it's really looking at this holistic aspect in terms of just general kind of what are you accountable for traditionally? Like, is the team working and being as efficient as we expected? And how are they feeling? Because again, we're not fully automating, Skynet AI kind of situation at this moment. We still have humans, right? I love the word human that was mentioned earlier. Like we can't forget that word, which sounds so ridiculous as humans. But like, how are the humans feeling? So
I don't know. We better ask the machine.
Right. Exactly.
This is so. What you laid out for us is a system. And I love that with the steps and the software and so forth. I couldn't help but think you could have done that system pre-AI. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of folks are looking, so how is AI turbocharging that, if it is at all? But so really great example of system. Got it. And the sprints and all of that makes sense. And it feels like anybody and by the way, it feels like a go-to-market team as much as a marketing team, which I think is also important. Yeah. But so as that's going along, you could do that Scrum. You could have done it 3 years ago. You're going to obviously do it today. What's happening that's somewhat different as a result of infusing AI into the process?
It's a great question, and maybe I'm wrong, but how we're approaching it is we know the world, and we're approaching the world as if we know the world. AI as an augmenter, a catalyst, an opportunity. That is, again, kind of increasingly being infused versus a complete delegation to AI, go solve our problems for us. So, we're still humans running this company, as I was saying before. So it really does matter. But obviously, like I said, in terms of like the tasks within this model, whether it's content creation, automation, summarizing team meetings, like what are the key takeaways, all of that increasingly is being injected into this process. But I where we're sitting is it feels very important to have that kind of human element where the people are running the ship, while using AI as an augmentation tool versus a governing tool.
Yeah, and I think I'm certainly agreeing with you, and I'm not pushing to say that AI is going to run it. I think the question that I have, and we'll talk about this after the break, is sort of, are we at an inflection point where leadership is fundamentally changed, and therefore the people on your team need to change, the way you lead changes? And that's the part I want to sort of get at when we get to the second half. But right now, let's talk about, and it's time for me to talk about my favorite subject other than CMOs, which is CMO Huddles. Launched in 2020, CMO Huddles is the only community of flocking awesome B2B marketing leaders, and that has a logo featuring penguins. Wait, what? Yes, well, a group of these curious, adaptable, and problem-solving birds is called a huddle. And the leaders in CMO Huddles are all that and more, huddling together to conquer the toughest job in the C-suite. And as this discussion has shown, it's not getting any easier out there. But Dan, Katrina, Chris, you're all incredibly busy marketing leaders. I'm wondering if there's a recent example of how CMO Huddles has helped you. You guys have all said nice things before. So if anything new to add.
I'll just add, I had a great one-on-one with another huddler, right? And to me, you're introducing us based off of what their needs are, their challenges are, and some of them I've solved and some of them I haven't. But those conversations to me are incredibly important and powerful.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you taking the time to have that one-on-one. It is something we are emphasizing more and more this year because I do believe we may be at this leadership inflection point. So thank you for that, Dan. Chris, anything?
Yeah, I can go next for sure. I think two things, right? It's the networking aspect and the perspective gaining, kind of part and parcel. But no question. At one point last year, we were talking about our new measurement framework, and I was able to reach out to you and the team and CMO Huddles and get connected with an SME who was so deep in this, and it was enormously helpful. So I think those are certainly, there's many more, but those are definitely what's been pertinent to me.
So Katrina, any additional thoughts?
I agree with all that. And I would say just the network effect of CMO Huddles, because if you're trying to solve something, there's a good chance someone else in Huddles has solved it already, or has at least been thinking about it as much as you have, and two heads are better than one. So it's been incredibly helpful from that standpoint, and hiring people as I've been building teams, like some really great referrals from folks.
I love it. All right. Well, we appreciate you, you three. If you're a B2B marketing leader who wants to build a stronger peer network, gain recognition as a thought leader, and get your very own Stress Penguin, please join us at cmohuddles.com. Okay. We did have a question from the audience while we had our lovely conversations, and they asked the sort of $1 million question or maybe it's $1 billion question. What do you think about AI and the ability to transform and make leaner companies? Anybody want to jump in on that one? Chris, I'm just looking at you.
I'm happy to. In theory, yes, right? I mean, we all kind of feel this. It does feel, to me at least, that not only adoption, but I just feel like we're on the absolute peak of the Gartner hype cycle right now. I think this is different than things like IoT and 3D printing and maybe other things in recent years that have come up that are, kind of at that same kind of peak. I think this is clearly, systemic, and this is going to change the way in which we all work and operate, communicate, and we can go into the dystopian, kind of, prophecies, if you would. But I think that I think the prudent way, as I was kind of saying earlier, is not we're going to throw the chessboard, topple the chessboard and reimagine everything all at once, but it's more about insertion, thoughtful kind of insertion in terms of how we think about this. Yes, and I've heard Sam Altman and others mention that, we'll, in the next 5 years, we'll have the first single person $1 billion market cap company. And maybe that's true, but I think just generally for the masses, it needs to be more of an augmentation engine. It needs to be more of a, how do you kind of, just do better work? How do you be more efficient? How do you plug it in to kind of optimize processes? But at this stage, as I was saying before, I think it's very important that humans still have the reins and are still running the ship. You get into Skynet, Terminator 2 kind of like negative, but I mean, it's just important. And I think we're early in the stage, but I think it's important, obviously, from an existential perspective, from an adoption perspective, to really kind of, be involved in this versus kind of wait and see. This is not a wait and see kind of moment.
Yeah, so I'm back, but I'm not back. You can probably hear me, but you can't see me. I'm going to fix that. But so, Dan, I'm thinking about you. You have a small team. Do you see yourself adding 5 more in the next year, or really saying, no, we're going to get 50%. Our team is going to be that much more productive. We don't need to.
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think we're still going to need more experts to join the team, my team, there's no question, right? But we're going to make those experts more effective, more efficient. And I like what Chris said is like, with AI, we're going to enable our systems to win more consistently, be more repeatable, right? More scalable, and more valuable in my mind. But it's going to give us better ideas. It's going to make what we create that much better. I look at AI as a good friend or a colleague or an assistant that can help me be better, it will help my teams be better. So I do feel we're at this inflection point. It is fascinating to see daily, weekly, like what's new in the world around AI and how that impacts marketing. So it's just fantastic to be a part of this next wave, to understand how we can leverage marketing and do it even better. And that's my view of where it is. I still will say the human element and human relationships will still be really important.
Yeah, it's funny. I've been using the tool a lot for strategic work, and I'm also listening to the AI-driven leader right now, and my mind is spinning with how much the tools can do as an augmentation, but the speed at which it can do it certainly frees me up to do other things and frees our team up to do other things. And I know it's funny. I think larger companies, and you may be seeing this, Chris, larger companies are struggling because not, say 25% of the employees adopted this stuff and went crazy. And then 25% said, no, it's using, for whatever reason have an issue. And I just don't know if there's room on any team at any company for anyone who is not, I'm going to say, an AI first thinker. Anybody want to argue with me on that? Go for it. Come on, let's get spicy.
I think it's hard to be an AI first thinker, and there's so many companies and major multi, literally centibillionaire brands that are out there that have gone all in on this. I mean, I think about Salesforce, I think about others, for sure, and it makes sense. And listen, we're marketing, right? We generally want to be ahead of the curve. We want to be a visionary, depending upon the brand. We want to be out there and kind of profess this vision. It's just so unpredictable now. I think more than any time probably in human history for 75,000 years. I really do believe that. But like I said, I know for a fact, I believe at least very strongly, I'll kind of retreat to that. This is not one of those fly by night, again, hype cycle things that will go away, even though we may be overhyped at the moment. This is clearly a structural type of a change. So we have to embrace it, but I think we have to not be crazy.
Yeah. I'm going to challenge that. I think you have to be crazy.
Okay.
I think you really do. I think that go on the whiteboard, erase everything that you've got other than you are a leader who takes care of your people and builds an effective team. However, if that team isn't being as effective as they can be because they're not using the tools, you're going to lose. You're going to lose out to, and I've drunk the Kool-Aid probably too much, but again, the deeper I get into this and suddenly I'm writing code over the weekend that's solving a major problem, I'm doing this, and I'm doing it only so that I can understand what other folks can do it. So this is a moment, guys. And so I really wanted to talk about the system, because if it is about leadership system and not necessarily even your wisdom, but your ability to ask questions and then have judgment, but so much of this can be processed faster. Doesn't that change how you lead?
Yeah, I'll say 100%. Katrina, did you want to go?
Yeah, I think I get asked a lot, what's the difference between all this AI stuff, right, and digital transformation, because I did a lot of work in digital transformation over the years. And I would say my answer is generally that the biggest difference is digital transformation, you kind of worked through it systematically across your company, versus AI is everything everywhere all at once, right? So you can't contain it to certain things. You can't say we're only going to use it on go-to-market, but we're not going to use it in our product, or we're not going to use it in operations, because then your whole company gets out of balance, right? So I think there's a speed part to it. I think it is probably the most pervasive category of technology that we've seen, I don't know, maybe ever, at least in my career anyway. And I think it's a mistake to think about it as it will make your company leaner, because that means your company is static.
Right.
It's just smaller. And I think because of the everything everywhere all at once part, that's not necessarily the case.
I, just agree that this, I don't want to, if you had 5 people and suddenly they can be 4 times more productive, in theory, you should be able to help the company grow. But I do think there is a gap, and I wonder if this is fair. You're building a system that relies on your team members to do stuff, right? And in theory, they're doing it in an AI-powered stuff. But I'm wondering if you're investing enough in training so they actually, at least at this moment in time, know how to do stuff. And then 3 months from now, know how to do stuff. And so, because it's kind of hard to just say, okay, go figure it out. Ask the AI what I could do with this today to make my, and so I'm wondering, and Chris, yours is a big company. Is training part of what you're doing as a leader to make sure the people on your team are deploying and operating under your system, but better and faster?
I'll go in first. I think yes, no question. How do you use these tools? What are the new tools? They're all emerging, profound. It's not obviously we're way past like just ChatGPT for writing emails. We're way past that, as we know, in terms of process automation and all of that. But I think it's I'm going to come back to the humanity for a second, because I don't want to lose it, because later too. Like I think it's most effective not as a you tell me what to do AI, but I want you to be faster, help me with this task, help me design this, maybe help me think about this in a way I haven't thought about it before. But generally, I still think it's important to have the humans governing the approach. Let's have a podcast in 5 years. Let's have a podcast.
Most likely there will be the Drewbot doing these interviews. I'm pretty sure.
Right. Yeah. Your avatar.
And I'll be going into, be interviewing your things. It's funny you mentioned writing your emails. Can I just whine a little bit? Copilot, like, give me a break. All I want to be able to do is repeat an email that I sent 3 days ago on this topic. Just find that information, put it in the email. Can't do it. Right? It simply can't do it. Sorry, Microsoft, but I'm calling you out on this. This is a huge opportunity. You could change our lives. There are lots and lots of repetitive emails that we're doing that you could solve for if you were just a little bit better at this.
So Drew, let me just add, because I think my team is a little bit different. We're smaller, but we are an AI first company, right? So everything we're doing is leveraging AI. And I asked my team, they're actually helping train me, because I asked them to go try a new tool every week or multiple tools every month and report back. Like, hey, was this tool helpful in your job? What was the good? What was the bad? What was the ugly? For example, 2 of my team members are going to a GEO event today to learn about how we can be more discoverable in LLMs, right? So they're going out to this conference and they're going to report back and say, hey, these are the things that we learned. So the training aspect, I'm pushing them to learn, and then they're bringing it back to the team to train and educate the entire team and educate me, right? So I think that's critically important for us to stay on top of things and to be aware of what's coming or what's happening. I'll just say the other thing, like product cycles. I used to work for hardware companies, and we put out a new product every 3 to 6 months. In this world of AI, we're putting out updates to products every week, right? And you have to move with marketing that fast to be able to update that story. And that's one thing we're leveraging AI to help us do that. So it's changing the whole company, I think, to move faster, as you said, and at the same time, it's making us better. And I agree with what Katrina said. It's not, what can we do with less people? It's how do we make those people more efficient, more effective, and make the company more successful. And my team is going to grow, but I'm going to have AI help us, do a lot more things than we ever could do before.
I love it. I want to ask, if we're moving from a hero structure of being the decider to a systems designer, are there sort of, is there a metric or two, and I'll ask Katrina, that gives you a sense that your operating system is healthy, that you're on the right track?
I think we all think about this a lot. Where my head's kind of gone on this of late is, less of a metric that some system spits out for me, right? That I can point to and say, aha, on the graph, it did the right thing, right? And more around the time it's taking us to get from like an insight to an implemented change that creates impact.
Agree.
Because that's the part where marketing makes the difference, right? We've had dashboards forever and this, that, and the other, and it takes 10 meetings and 55 conversations and 3,000 emails, and then you can action that insight, and then fast forward 2 months and it has an impact, right? So if you think about how much faster you can do some of those things now, that's what gets me excited and kind of what I'm watching to see if the system is effective. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, right? It's an ability to serve our clients better, do the right thing for our employees, like be better members of the business and broader community. And so how can we turn those insights into implementation that creates action faster? So it's not necessarily something that spits out from a lovely system someplace and gives me the answer, but that's kind of what I've been keeping an eye on.
I love it. It's like insight to impact is really an interesting framework. It's funny because we have a go-to-market sponsor, HC Insights, and they were in the insight world where they would find you the data that would tell you the right customers, but now they can take that data and help you implement against it. So you can go straight from find that insight to who you're targeting to suddenly activate a program. And when I think about that, I go, okay, the human in the loop is still there, but man, it finds the insight, and then it's speech and impact. But that's a great framework. I think that's a really interesting way of thinking about this. Dan or Chris, did you want to weigh in on this system metric notion?
I'll just say from a production perspective, that's how we look at it: is are we producing better content? Are we producing better outcomes? And do we see that in, more inbounds, more pipeline, more customer success, more feedback from customers? And to me, those are the metrics that we normally track. Are they getting better because of this?
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
And Chris?
True. I think I mentioned it before, but it's three things. Like the first one is obviously the business results. Are we being effective in terms of pipeline generation, win rates, what have you? Are we kind of getting through those tasks that we need to deliver, which we've all agreed upon in this system, if you would, effectively? And then, like I said, how are the people feeling that are part of these teams? Because if they're melting down, maybe a great system I'm presenting to the CEO, and then it's like not great. So I think it's those three elements from us.
Yeah, it's like I can just feel it. I love your scrums, Chris, but 3 weeks is killing me.
Yeah.
And I mean the irony is that scrums used to be 4 weeks or 6 weeks, and now it's 3 weeks, and the machine, and all you have to do is run it through the AI, and the AI will say, "Oh yeah, we could take a week off of that. Just do this."
That's right.
Yeah, and Chris, your point about team health, I totally agree. I had my team in the office with me over the past 2 days. It's important to still get together, right, and sync up and make sure everybody's feeling good about things and what's working, what's not, and those are discussions. So I think the team dynamic is really important that you point out there.
100%. Well, last thing, if I could say, Drew, not to hog too much of the airtime, but like Dan, couldn't agree more. Like we're people. And like, I think COVID was an accelerant, no question about it. But this whole notion of like completely remote work, and I know a lot of companies operate that way and they're very successful, some of them, and that's great. But like people are meant to be with people. And like, there's just, I will fight to the death about this. Like there's no substitute for that of getting together, whiteboarding, collaborating, getting to know each other. You can't replace that as long as people are having jobs, and it's not all agents. So God forbid that happens. Maybe it will, but for now, people have to be people.
You're making me, for Clump, I feel like I'm going to break out in a Barbra Streisand song. People who need people. Holy cow! And yes, I think it could be tempting. If you were a PE-backed firm, they might be putting a lot of pressure on you as a leader in the organization. And I think part of this conversation is about the world is shifting a little bit, or a lot. And you are still going to need human, but I think the type of humans, not the way you treat humans, that can't change, right? We still need to be, but you might have a slightly different makeup of those folks based on the skill set. And it's funny, this may be a terrible example, but I did talk to a CMO who said, I'm not as strong at product marketing, but you know what? I built a sort of program for myself and I can fill in that gap. So I'm not going to hire a product marketer right now. I'm going to hire somebody else who can help me do this. So that kind of decision was never possible before. Mm-hmm. So you're still in the business of allocating resources, right? And that is fascinating at this moment, because it's like, okay, what are we really going to allocate towards? And what's really hard is it's almost impossible to keep up with what is possible right now. So God bless you for doing what you do, and fighting the good fight. Thank you for that. I wanted a new way to wrap up, which is, if you could, you've all participated in this conversation, if you could provide your one key takeaway from today's conversation, not necessarily something, maybe you heard it from one of the other guests, but give me one key takeaway from today's conversation. And we'll start with Chris, because you were last at the start.
I think the big takeaway is we all appreciate the world we're living in, but we're all figuring it out. And I don't think anyone has truly figured it out, partially because technology is evolving so fast. But generally speaking, this is bigger, like we were saying. This isn't some IoT thing or whatever. Like this is an existential, like, I heard estimates of 10-20% of the employed workforce in the United States in 5 years being unemployed. Like, what does that mean? And that's not, that's obviously separate from our jobs in terms of achieving outcomes and selling, and of course, but I just feel like there is a bigger implication of what we're all talking about. Not that anyone's going to take a stand in a capitalist society. I'm not like making a political statement. I'm not at all. I like, of course, we're here to make money. Like, let's not make a mistake. But I think there's additional consideration of, like, how do we think about all of those things versus just, I had a team of 49 and now I have 47 agents and 2 people and I'm so happy. Like, is that good?
Well, that's a different issue. But your big takeaway is we are in a moment. This is a moment. All right. Dan Lowden, what's your big takeaway from the conversation today?
Yeah, I agree. We are in a moment. I love the idea about, the systems designer, systems leadership, where you can create repeatable success, right? To empower your customers and serve your customers better, because that's what it comes down to, right? So how that's going to play out over time with people versus AI tools and agents, it's really going to be fascinating to see. But I think it comes down to, how do we serve our customers better? And if we stay true to that, then I think we'll find the right balance.
Love it. And Katrina, one quick takeaway.
At the risk of being cliche, I think you have to be very comfortable being constantly uncomfortable, because that means you're growing, right? And it's important for your team too. Humans need context, right? Humans need a lot of context. And so part of that context is, it's okay to try stuff. It's okay that some of it's not going to work. It's okay to experiment. It's okay that you don't have all the answers, because nobody has all the answers for this, right? And so I think it's that we're all used to being uncomfortable in moments of time, but your new homeostasis is a constant state of uncomfortable, which I think is foreign to most of us. But it's a good thing at the end of the day, because it means you're growing and you're learning, and your team is too.
I love it. All right. Well, we are, I am certainly getting more comfortable being uncomfortable, but not when it comes to talking to you guys. It is a treat for me. So thank you, Dan, Katrina, Chris, you're all amazing sports. Thank you, audience, for staying with us. Please join us in 2 weeks, when we'll be talking about peer leadership with the executive team with Allison Havner, Lori Colomb, and Kathy Johnson. Cue the music. CMO Huddles Studio is produced by Melissa Caffrey. Our production assistants are Laura Parkin and Ishar Cuevas. If you'd like to learn more about CMO Huddles, please visit CMOHuddles.com. I'm your host, Drew Neiser, and until next time, keep on sharing, caring, and daring.